Okay, annotation. 3 levels: plot, theme, and symbol. Degrees of difficulty. Unlike the earlier annotation, 3 styles, this one is different because there are different levels. Easy is just annotating for plot, medium is annotating for theme, and the most difficulty is figurative or symbolic language. So, importantly, what do each of these mean? Firstly, plot is simply things that can be answered with the question what. So, what happened? What did they do? What happened next? Questions like that. The thematic level is a little bit harder. At the thematic level, we can make thematic evaluations and statements, linking plot elements with their wider or deeper meaning within the text. When we say that such and such a character represents a concept or an idea by his or her very construction, these take on a greater significance and become a commentary on a deeper message or an overall point the author is trying to make. So the earlier plot level, all we're recording is who the characters are and what they do. At the thematic level, we're trying to work out why the author did this and what they're saying about the more broader ideas that are covered in the text. Lastly, when we consider overarching ideas or universal themes that the author has asked us to consider, things like love, hate, racism, big themes like that. What is the author saying and how have they set out their story to show that? So, the figurative level. Now this one's complicated and there's a lot of information here, so I'm going to read bits and pieces. The figurative level is going beyond the plot and themes of the text and looking at the text as a piece of art. What choices has the author made in regards to their style of writing? So we're not looking at the characters, the plot, or the theme, but we're looking beyond that at the structure of the piece of writing. Things that we could consider as artistic choices are when we look at symbols that continue throughout the story, when we begin to recognize key phrases or mottos of certain characters, when we take note of different perspectives within the text, when we begin to notice imagery, when we start to note the way that characterization is developed, which is how you show how one character is different from the other. And the most complicated one is when we consider literary devices and techniques that an author uses to connect to certain emotions or ideas with a character, place, or event. Lastly, what allusions are made to other texts, other stories, or other myths. Easy difficulty is plot. The plot of the story is what happens and to whom. You may complete diagrams or graphic organizers or cut out jumbled events and be asked to reorganize them to ensure you have a good grasp of the plot. This mostly happens at the younger year levels and is something you should move away from as you grow up. Though this is the easiest level of annotation, it can be made much harder by the difficulty of the text itself and your level of reading. So the best example of this is William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, where the plot, large number of characters and the barrier of language can often mean that annotating for plot is important. So perhaps your first reading of any Shakespearean text, you might be annotating for plot, but we would expect that you would move on and develop further from this. Medium difficulty themes. A theme is used to describe the main message of the story. For the overall text to be cohesive, a story needs to have at least one main message or theme. In Lorinda, Alice Pung comments on a range of issues that are relevant to secondary school students. She discusses bullying, the divide between rich and poor people, between public and private schools, the experience of teachers and students, and also being Asian in an otherwise monocultural place. It's worth noting you can have 2 separate things encapsulated in one theme. For example, if your theme is money, you could highlight examples of dire poverty and also extreme wealth, so the 2 sides of the coin. Or if a theme is very important, you may need to split it up, such as love and hate in Romeo and Juliet. Hard difficulty, figurative, which includes symbols, motifs, and authorial style. Firstly, a symbol is the use of words, phrases, or images which convey specific ideas or meanings, where one thing represents something else. A motif is something symbolic that shows up in a work to reinforce the work's main theme. Motifs recur throughout a work as opposed to only appearing once, and they must hold significance to the plot. So a symbol can be used once and forgotten, whereas a motif is reoccurring, which means it comes up again and again. From To Kill a Mockingbird, I'll give you an example of each to get you thinking about it. So an example of a symbol is the ham costume that Scout wears only once and discards when she is attacked by Boo Radley, symbolizing her casting off of her childishness and also being made more aware of the adult world. An example of a motif is the mockingbird in To Kill a Mockingbird, as pictured. Note that it appears again and again throughout the story, and the motif of the mockingbird reoccurs and is related to Boo Radley to show that those who are innocent should be let be. So what is authorial style? Authorial style is a separate element of the figurative language level, and to engage at this level there is no limit to the things that you can refer to. At this level you are looking at why the author wrote the story in the way that they did. To do this you could look at plot structure, the use of themes, symbolism, motifs, dialogue, flashbacks, flash forwards, as well as a whole range of other literary techniques which we will learn about at a later date. So if we look at the pyramid, we can see symbolism is at the top for them. Idiom, which is expressions, hyperbole, and sarcasm. Hyperbole is exaggerating, sarcasm is saying one thing and meaning the other. Onomatopoeia, which is sound effects in essence. Imagery and sensory details, which is hard to explain. And personification, which is putting the feelings and emotions of humans onto things that don't have them. Lastly, similes and metaphors, which are two different ways of comparing things. So, in summary, unlike the earlier three styles, this one is not a personal thing. Each level has been assigned a difficulty because some are easier than others. So an essay or other type of response based on a novel annotated only to the plot level will always be inferior to a novel annotated to the thematic level. Further, an essay written based on an essay annotated to the figurative level will be superior to a novel annotated to the thematic level, which is a very complicated sentence to say that. If you're able to do the figurative level very well, that will always be better than the thematic level done very well, which will always be better than the plot level done very well.